Hey everyone, welcome back to Teenager Therapy. I'm Gael.
I'm Thomas.
I'm Kayla.
I'm Isaac.
And welcome back to the podcast. You know, if there's one thing about us, is we're not the wealthiest. But if there's one thing about everyone else around us recently, they all seem to be really wealthy.
Yeah.
Nepotism. Nepotism is the topic of today's episode. It seems like it's been something that everyone, honestly, all of you but me, have been experiencing a lot of recently, and you all seem to be very passionate about this issue. So what's that been like for you, being around? For context, Thomas and Kayla, you're at USC, Isaac, you're at Berkeley, so obviously two very prestigious schools that attract a lot of wealthy people. So what's that been like?
Well, first in context, yeah, we aren't the wealthiest. We growing up here in Orange County, not the Newport Beach, Orange County, Anaheim, Orange County. In high school, no one was really wealthy. Like, maybe someone was middle class, but barely. So we didn't experience anyone who was actually wealthy. And going to USC, we actually just run into them so often. Like, everyone just seems to be... Isaac, are you good?
Yeah, it's just so funny. So.
Barely middle class.
like barely middle class. Yeah, it's bad.
Like, should I reword it or like?
No, it's just funny because it's right.
Oh,
That's
okay.
true.
Because it was so real of you.
It's so real.
I mean, yeah, like
it's sad.
I could name one person who I thought was like rich, but they weren't actually that rich, you know?
Yeah.
So we went to a low income school, and USC just exposed us to a bunch of different people in our classes, people we are friends with even, that come from such a different background. And I never thought I would have problems with it. Like, I felt that I would be able to choose my friends wisely, and privilege wouldn't be such a reoccurring theme in my recent months. I'm just every time Kayla and I are together, we just talk about it. So
Yeah, I think being at USC was definitely a wake-up call to the rest of the world, because obviously we've never been exposed to it. And I would meet people and they would hear that I'm from OC and they would have misconceptions about me already. They would assume that I was well off and I lived in the nice parts. And to be honest, until last year, I didn't know OC was like a rich place. I didn't even know Newport was considered OC. Like, it's so crazy because people would tell me these things and I'm like, oh, really? Like, I didn't even know that about OC myself, and I've lived here for 18 years now. So it's so crazy, the misconceptions that people have of me because of it. I guess
so
I'll
funny.
take it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, if you tell someone from an upper circle you're from LC, they're like, oh, like Laguna, Newport,
Irvine.
Irvine. You're like,
I'm like, nah.
I did not know that was part of OC.
yeah.
really,
Being so real, I did not know that was part of OC.
Yeah, same. Newport's part of OC.
Yeah, I didn't know
I
that.
it's like
I
what
didn't know that.
everyone thinks is the OC.
Yeah.
Now I know.
There's literally a show
Yeah.
called The OC, and it's just
I'm actually
Laguna,
watching
Newport.
that show right now. Like,
Really?
Yeah,
That's so
I just started
funny.
it.
I mean, I don't blame them because OC has so many rich areas like Irvine, just all suburbs.
Yeah.
Newport, obviously.
Even
is Newport.
Fullerton, like you go into Fullerton.
Fullerton. Okay.
Fullerton Hills.
Yeah, Fullerton Hills. Yeah, it's nice, but Anaheim,
No,
no.
we're like in the
Like,
bottom,
Maybe
Anaheim's
they
overly
might think
rich.
it's rich because they hear Disneyland,
but no,
but no.
no.
Yeah. They always ask too, like, oh, do you go to Disneyland often?
That's like the number one question.
Who's paying for the ticket?
Yeah.
Because it's not me.
Yeah, it's like 300.
But yeah, it was just a big shock to be exposed to these different types of people, and let alone start friendships with them, because implications sort of just arise whether you want them to or not, because I mean,
Money
yeah,
always brings problems,
and it's people with like very different backgrounds, so you sort of expect it, but it's it seems now more than ever it's just always a reoccurring problem or thought in my head, especially when you have breaks like these and you're with people that you've known forever and similar backgrounds and everything. And then you go back to school and you're exposed to that environment again, which it's also can be beneficial because you recognize the world is more than just your hometown. And you recognize there are different people and you learn how to deal with them. But yeah, it just serves as a reminder every time.
You know, I think because we've talked about this issue before of privilege and wealth and such. So I think the main point of this episode is the weird dynamic when you are friends with people that are wealthier and when you have relationships with them, and how it impacts into a lot of the things you do, the things you say, the things you don't say, and the way you perceive all of their words, you know? Thankfully, I've yet to be exposed to, I think, the same level of nepotism or constant privilege, at least even in a way where I have close friends. I think for me, there is a lot of, recently there's like, you know, I get to be friends with people that are wealthier than most of my friends. And it's definitely been like, for me, right now, it's been almost refreshing. Because it's this level of wealth that's like not extreme on either end, but it's just kind of like open, if that makes sense. I think having this friendship where we're both open about the wealth we have and the wealth we don't have is nice because one, it's just real. Like it's just like a real like, okay, like, yeah, I don't have money for that. I have money for this. Or, oh yeah, we both have money for these two things and like we can afford it. And it's just like very open about it. Which is nice because even though I feel like I sometimes get this weird feeling of like, oh, maybe we shouldn't talk about money because it's like, what if someone gets jealous that you have more or you have less? Then like, how does that make the other person feel? So for me, it's nice being able to talk about it and just being okay with it and not having feelings of like jealousy or any of that. But for some reason, it feels like the wealthier you get, the less you want to talk about how much wealth you have.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. And that's what really surprises me because I feel, if anything, the people that have less money wouldn't want to talk about it because they feel some sort of way about it. But more often than not, it's the people that are wealthy that want to hide it. And I would really just appreciate it if a wealthy person was just honest about their money and they didn't have to make it a point of relatability to try to be poor and relate to me in some sort of way, because then it's just degrading and insulting to me.
Does that happen?
Yes, it's happened.
What does that look like?
Someone complaining they're broke, they can't pay for this, but they clearly
they're paying for other stuff.
And they're paying for other
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
Their parents are the ones paying. They're not the ones paying. So
Exactly. It's never ever the same extremities that they're thinking of.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When they say I can't pay for this, they just mean they didn't get allowance. But if they really needed it, they can ask for it. Me is I literally cannot afford to do something. And it's just degrading. It makes me feel like if you don't have money, then what do I have? And it's just, it's so insane to me. And it happens all the time.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why they don't want to talk about money is because they know that as soon as somebody knows their wealth, people might want to be friends with them for the wrong reasons. And two, there's just so many negative connotations with being wealthy. At the end of the day, I understand why these privileged kids make it a point not to make their wealth apparent, or they do, because they were raised that way. And I have to be unfortunately understanding about that at the end of the day, that they don't fully recognize the harm they're doing. They're just being very tone deaf. And I think that's the problem with a lot of privileged kids. They're just tone deaf. They don't understand that, pretending that you're broke is actually a lot worse than just embracing the wealth you have and recognizing that privilege. Because that's the most annoying thing, is when they don't want to recognize it.
Or they don't have the perspective for it. Like, they literally just, like what Kayla said, your broke is not my broke. But in their head it is, and that's why you need perspective to be like, maybe I shouldn't go around being like, I'm broke, because that could have a very different connotation to people, and that's something to be mindful of.
Yeah.
That is true, yeah. Their perspective of broke can be different, like way different from yours, definitely.
So then, are they really at fault for saying that, or are we at fault for taking offense?
All I'm saying is that if you are ever going to complain about money, especially with other people, you have to take into consideration everyone's backgrounds. Because let me tell you, if you have money and you are telling someone who actually does not have any that they're very, they're actually struggling, and you can just ask your parents for that whenever you want, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. It won't be the same. Like, ever. You're going to college because a degree looks good and whatever, but your parents can get you a job. Your parents have set you for life. So why? Like, that's the thing, is that unfortunately, at the end of the day, you do come from privilege. And that's just something you got to recognize.
Yeah. And Gal, also how you're saying you're able to talk about money openly with your friend or whatever. And I'm able to do the same with some of my friends. But when it comes to the wealthy ones, they're always saying how, well, we don't like to talk about money because it's a touchy subject and this and that. But who's it touchy for?
Yeah.
It's not touchy for me. I speak about it openly, and I'll be completely transparent and honest, because I really don't have anything to hide, and it's not like I'm ashamed about it. It's just the way that it is right now, and I recognize it's not going to be the same in the future, but it's just sometimes it's like, am I being gaslighted? Like, do I not talk about this enough, or should I be talking about it more? But I guess the wealthy just don't like to talk about money, and
because they immediately antagonize themselves for it, because they know there's a chance other people will. But if you are, with friends, and the friends aren't too focused on your wealth, like, you don't have to worry about being antagonized. Like, you're just doing it to yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially if you're friends with the people. I don't really care about your money or whatever, but if you make it a point to try to relate to me in any way when it comes to financial things, it's just, it further proves the fact that we are not the same.
Yeah. Or like Venmoing requesting, and like, it's just it's like
for like really cheap things, like under $1.
Like, that is insane. I will of course pay it back. I mean, if I owe you, I owe you. But there are times where I pay for people I don't even Venmo request because it's my treat, whatever. But the wealthiest people, they never ever forget, and they'll hound you for it. Literally text you multiple times throughout the day and get mad at you for not paying them back. And
it's crazy. Like, even if like you've like helped them out before, they still like won't care. They won't even like cover like your whatever cents or dollars. It's crazy.
And we are taking a short little break from the podcast because we want to tell you about two of our friends who also have really nice podcasts that we think you should listen to. And the first one is the Busy Yet Pretty podcast, which is basically the ultimate podcast consisting of all things wellness and advice to becoming the best version of yourself. The host, who is also our friend Jaden Haley, shares her relatable life experiences, which have led her to be more motivated and confident and overall just a better mindset. She covers topics such as self-love, self-improvement, manifestations, and steps to creating your own healthy lifestyle. The show's purpose is to reach those who are looking to improve their mindset, gain motivation, or become the best version of themselves. And let me tell you, like, when I look at Jaden, she has her life together. So I want to know how she does it. And if you do too, listen to the Busy Yet Pretty podcast on Spotify, Apple, or all streaming platforms. And the second podcast that we love and think you should also listen to is the Mad Happy podcast, which is a series of conversations on mental health hosted by Mad Happy founders and our friends Mason Spector and Payman Raff. At its core, the show aims to illuminate the full spectrum of mental health, the highs and the lows. They have weekly conversations with special guests like Emma Chamberlain, Jay Shetty, and even we were on it. So, you could listen to our episode on their podcast. So the episodes are meant to just help remind us how much we all have in common and how much value there is in our shared life experiences. So listen now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else. Visit madhappypodcast.com to learn more. Anyways, we hope you enjoy those 2 podcast recommendations from our friends, and back to the episode.
But Gael, like earlier, to answer your question about perspectives, I think it's good to look at everyone's perspective, but sometimes I think some perspectives can be wrong. Like in this case, assuming that you're broke, right? From a rich person, their definition of broke can be different from yours, right? But are they so broke that they can't support their livelihood or their families? I think in that case, it could just be really different.
And so that's the other thing that I think is, okay, let's say I'm fucking rich or whatever, and I see you guys talking about like, yeah, our perspectives of what broke means, our definition of that is completely different. And I would say one is a lot more serious, of course, if you're poor.
Yeah.
So then in that case, how would it feel both to us not having the same level of wealth when I'm like talking about how I feel broke? Because to me, I could be like, damn, like I am like out of my allowance. I'm out of this, so I can't really afford to buy all this anymore. Would you say, yeah, you should still be able to talk about that openly and say like, I don't have enough money, even though that really just means I just ran out of my imaginary budget for this month, so I can't buy that? Or do you avoid talking about it because you're right, like I don't have a right to complain since I know I still could get it?
Yeah.
And so do you think a lot of these rich people aren't talking about money, or they think it's a sensitive subject because they know that like your situation is a lot more serious than theirs, so now they feel like maybe they shouldn't talk about it? I worded that kind of lengthy, but do you get it?
I like kind of get it, but it's hard to follow along.
Yeah, I think the word broke, I guess if they're out of their, like you said, imaginary allowance or whatever. But I think when they use the word poor is when like it's not right.
Interesting.
I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm sorry. Stop being tone deaf. That's the thing, is that we excuse so many things because just because you don't have just because you didn't have bad intentions doesn't mean what you're saying is okay. At the end of the day, you're being tone deaf. You're offending people.
And that's the thing. I think that's why a lot of wealthy people victimize themselves, is because I think they feel like they're being told, you can't complain ever. And so they're like, oh shit, like.
Well, but that's kind of the point that we're trying to make right now, is that you can complain. It's just you can't do it in a way that's just disregards everybody else's situation. Like if you like that doesn't mean you can afford everything and anything. If you say, "Oh, I can't buy that right now," like money's running low, whatever. Okay, cool, whatever. We don't expect you to buy everything just because you can. But if you're complaining that you're not getting this or that, there's a big difference between saying you can't buy something right now and saying that you're broke. Because saying you're broke means you don't have that money. But you do have that money. You just don't want to spend it.
So being more mindful of the language they use.
That's literally what being tone deaf is that they don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everything is just 10 times worse when they dance around it.
Yeah.
I just wish they could just be straight up.
Yeah.
Privilege
in any form
basically
is just, you just recognize it. All you have to do is recognize it. You don't have to dance around it to make other people feel better, because it just only makes people feel worse.
And the thing is, you don't have to feel bad about having your privilege. Like, that's not my intention at all. It's just use it for good.
Yeah.
If you have a friend that's saying, I can't go out to dinner because I don't have money, and you're in that position to easily cover their bill, then just say, hey, I got you this time. You can pay me back. Get me a drink sometime. That's it. But they just don't.
Yeah. Or even just denying the fact that they do have privilege, you know?
Yeah.
It's, you know, you see these nepotism babies in the industry saying that they have to work harder, they have to prove themselves, but babe, like, it's handed to you.
Everyone
Like,
believes in you already.
You have to understand that you already came from an advantage, and there's nothing wrong with that. You were just born into it. But to just act like it doesn't exist, come on. Don't, like, who are you
Don't
fooling
bullshit.
here? Like, sure, that doesn't mean you didn't work hard. That didn't mean that you aren't as worthy as other people, but it's unfair. And that's okay. Just stop bullshitting us.
It's just so funny when they try to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at least for me, I feel like everybody can see what they're saying. It's just them trying to save face. But everybody knows. And that's fine that everybody knows. Just be honest. That's the thing. It's fine if you have money. It's fine if you're privileged. It's fine if whatever. Just be honest about it. And that's it.
Yeah,
Don't
you're
try
not
to-
a bad person because of it.
Exactly.
You're a bad person if you try and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this isn't me saying that I hate everybody that's wealthy and rich and whatever. It says a lot about you, the way that you approach the situations.
Yes.
You know, just because you have money doesn't automatically mean that I have, you know, I now dislike you. It's just, I really hope that you prove me wrong and be one of the good rich people.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I am right, but I really do hope that I get proven wrong. And it happens sometimes, but it's more rare.
Yeah, it is refreshing when someone's just like, oh no, like I have the money for it. I just don't like, I can't spend it right now or something like. It's like, okay, that's fine.
We don't have to make it a big
Exactly.
deal. It doesn't have to be a big deal at all.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be like this thing that you're trying to hide. Everybody talks about their own financial situations, but you can't because you feel that for some reason you just, you know, you have too much money and you can't be saying these things. And I get that, but I just want wealthy people to be honest. That's it.
Yeah. I think there's recently some like a feeling that I experienced a little bit is sort of similar to what you've all been experiencing, is that little sort of shame or embarrassment about your financial situation, especially being on having some sort of influence or a platform like we do, or achievements that when you look at, you might think, whoa, like this person has achieved this much. They must be financially stable. They must have like money of some sort. And so sometimes there is a weird, awkward tension, I feel, like an embarrassment when I meet someone that is wealthy and, you know, equally as successful, maybe more, maybe less. But I wonder if they have this perception of me as like, well, like he's probably really well off, or he's well off maybe because he has these achievements. And so it's embarrassing to be like, no, actually I'm still poor. Like, I'm sorry. Like maybe like my Instagram makes it seem like I'm like wealthy in some way, but it's all an illusion.
I completely understand what you're saying, because that's happened to me more times than I would think. I mean, I'm from OC. I'm going to USC. I am in a podcast. You see me going to France, and I just have to break it to them that's not.
We're just very lucky. That's
so
really it.
lucky and
we
so
would never be in
fortunate.
these positions if it weren't for this podcast.
Exactly. And I have to tell them, like, actually the flight was paid for because I work with, Spotify, but again. And okay, that's another thing that I think of sometimes too. It's like these wealthy people they're going to France. They're living there for like a week or two. And I'm doing the same thing. So then in a way, I'm no better than them. You know, like yes, we're coming from different circumstances, but we're still doing the same thing at the end of the day. So
Wait, what do you mean?
But you're no
Like-
better than them, or they're no better than you in any way. Like we're the equal.
I know that we're not equal, but sometimes it just makes me feel weird. Like, am I playing a role of trying to act like I have money or something?
I mean, no, you're just literally experiencing the same things they're experiencing.
Poor
It's just
mentality. right
Literally.
here.
Yeah.
Imposter
Please,
syndrome. Like, do
imposter-
I deserve
yeah.
to be in these
Basically,
spaces?
yeah, this is my imposter syndrome speaking right now. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
It's so it always feels awkward. Like it's awkward. It feels like they have those expectations of me. So it is a little odd. But I'm like, they're like, oh, like, yeah, can I go visit? Like, do you have a house? Like, I'm like, oh no, I live with my parents. I'm at home. It feels like, well, like I'm cracking that illusion. Now they're gonna think like, oh, never mind. I don't want to play with you anymore.
He's
You know?
dirty and poor.
Dirty.
When people make just false assumptions, it's just so. It just feels embarrassing to tell them the truth. Like,
Yeah.
hey, can I just go stay at like one of your rooms? Like
Yeah.
for example, have an
Oh.
example.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I live like near Disneyland, right? So when people hear I'm near Disneyland, they're like, "Wow, you want to go to Disneyland? You have a spare room, huh, in your house?" I'm like, no. I don't have
That's
some
so
big
funny.
house with extra rooms. I'm sorry. It's just me and my family, and we don't have that. So that's why it just kind of sucks when people make false assumptions of your financial situation.
Yeah.
And
you know, yeah.
Surprisingly, I had like this really bad experience. Like some girl was like way more well off than me, and she tried to tell me I don't have the same financial situation as you. I can't afford it. And I was just trying to get like a $10 meal with her. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's kind of like scary and just sad. It can be embarrassing opening up, especially for me. I don't really open up about it to like people I don't really know as well. But yeah,
Interesting. It's just awkward. It's just, you know, I don't mind at the end of the day. I'm like, whatever, like, too fucking bad you found out I'm poor, but it is awkward. It is really awkward. Like,
it's awkward.
especially when it's like, oh my god, like, let me come stay with you. I'm like,
Like it's not happening. Like
babes, I'm so sorry, but I live in a tiny like little apartment with my mom and my family. So they're like, oh, okay.
I wonder what they think.
Yeah.
I really wonder. Are they like sympathetic or they're like, wow, he's poor?
Yeah.
I really wonder.
Yeah, like, oh, you don't live like in a loft in LA in OC? Like, you're just in an apartment? Like,
I
damn.
don't know.
So awkward, but yeah, that type of thing sucks. So moral of the story: have perspective. I mean, have perspective. Like, yeah, just be open about it and have perspective.
To us, it's such an easy concept to grasp, but to them, that's their reality. So it's hard to break out of that.
You think
I
it's 'cause
mean,
they just
if
have
you're-
worries? Like, why is it so hard for them to break out of it?
They grew up that way. Their parents influenced them. It's like they don't know any better. It's not like they're trying. And if you know, and you still perpetuate that privilege and don't even want to recognize it, that's even worse. But
Yeah, it is nice when I hear like a person be like, oh no, like I have privilege, like I have like this power, like do you need me to like help you like do something? I'm like, yes, like I would like that
use your
actually.
privilege for
Like,
good, yeah.
Yeah.
thank you. Wow.
I mean, even just let's say you are wealthy and you're listening to this podcast, you're already taking a step towards understanding different perspectives.
Mhm.
And if you got offended by what we said, then look at yourself, reflect on your situation, and no one's trying to antagonize you. You're not a bad person if you do come from money. It's really not a problem. It's only a problem if you pretend you don't. So,
yeah, shouldn't feel guilty about it either.
yeah.
I think a lot of rich people feel that guilt, which I don't blame them for, because I guess I could definitely see how it develops of just like, damn, like you see all these people that are struggling and you're not, so you're like, I feel guilty talking about it, and that makes sense. But the more you talk to people less wealthy than you, the more you'll realize like really like all people want is some like self-awareness. That's about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. We'll put a poll and a question and a comment in the description. Drop your net worth down below so we can see like
Venmo us.
Venmo us. No, honestly, I am gonna put a poll that's gonna be like, are you low class, middle class, high class, and see like where you all land.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So if you know, let us know. But thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you are a rich listener, we still love you. We just hope you're not tone deaf. We hope this helped.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you're a poor friend, a poor listener, thank you so much for listening, and just, I don't know, best of luck. Best of luck, really.
We
like,
get
you already
it.
know.
So
We're all
Yeah.
in this.
If you're middle class, I think you're like, I'm so sorry for those college loans.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sucks. Hope you make it out. I
You
guess.
got this.
You got
Yeah.
this. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.